Chapter 41. Open the door. Come out for inspection. What's happening with the security team? A series of explosions shocked the refugees in the tourist area. Those who were out searching for large rats immediately rushed home, while those near the parking lot quietly pulled back their curtains or found hidden positions to see what was happening at the parking lot. Some daredevils took the risk of approaching, but as they walked, they heard a bang in the heavy rain and someone fell. Vaguely, they could still hear the faint sounds of mocking laughter from nearby. Then came several gunshots and someone else fell. Those who followed saw this brutal scene and no one dared to go forward, only watching from afar. Approximately 300 people, with more than 100 wheelbarrows carrying goods, entered the parking lot, taking over the security team's previous territory. Outside Villa number 36, Min arrived with a dozen of the security team's brothers. Maria came down to the first floor, holding a crossbow, her body trembling slightly. If these security guards dared to break down the door, she would start killing. Min politely knocked on the door and shouted, "Miss Maria, more than 300 people have just arrived in the tourist area. They have guns and bombs, killing anyone on sight, extremely vicious. We are preparing to hide in the mountains for a few days. Please be very careful." Worried that Maria hadn't heard, Min repeated himself and then quickly led his brothers away. He planned to leave some traces in this torrential rain. The end of the trail led to a cave. If they were determined to track to the end, let them face the man-eating giant spiders. However, considering these people had guns and bombs, Min hoped the giant spider would be even stronger. Maria put away the crossbow and returned to the second floor. According to the information provided by Min, these people were armed with guns and bombs, killing anyone on sight. Were they planning to occupy the entire tourist area? Her villa would definitely be targeted. This time was different from the previous ones. If someone attacked, the crossbow in her hand would be very dangerous. Fearful, "I really want to find a cardboard box to hide in." Lily watched Maria in front of her, her expression increasingly tense. "Maria, will it be dangerous? Should we run away? Escape?" Maria shook her head. There was nowhere to run. Maria looked at Lily in front of her, not knowing what she was thinking. After a while, Maria said, "Let's go to the third floor." "No, let's prepare on the first floor first, right?" Maria entered the mushroom room and collected all the growing mushrooms and vegetables into the magic space. She also collected the bed and clean bedding into the magic space. If they were destroyed in the battle, it would be a pity. "Maria, are we moving?" Lily asked worriedly, seeing Maria pack everything up. Maria said, "I don't know." She didn't want to move. In just over a month, it would start snowing, and the whole world would be plunged into extreme cold. She couldn't find a second suitable place for disaster relief in a short time. Going out recklessly would be fatal. They fled pretty quickly. Whoever lives here is smart. A leader entered the parking lot storage room, seeing the remaining rice, flour, cured meat, biscuits, beer, and the rat jerky being smoked and already smoked, sneered. "Collect the rice, flour, biscuits, cured meat, and beer. Share this smoked meat among you." He ate a few pieces of jerky and found the taste not bad. "The boss is here," someone shouted. The small leaders immediately straightened up and looked at the person who came, protected by the guard team. It was hard to imagine that this young girl was the leader of these people. Connie Tark, 23 years old, a master of law. She had a simple ponytail, glasses, held a copy of the criminal law, wore a plain jacket, and looked very scholarly, as if she had just stepped out of university. Connie Tark glanced at the smoked rat jerky on the table, then at the person eating it and said, "Have you tested these things for poison?" The small leader with a submachine gun laughed. "Boss, no one would poison food." Connie Tark said, "I would if it were me." The small leader looked at the jerky on the table, his expression changing. He had to admit that the security guard living here knew how to enjoy life. The salt used in making the jerky was just right, full of flavor, and just a little bit gave him a lot of strength. Connie Tark didn't pursue the matter further. As always, the collected food will be tested by the inspection department, and only after it is confirmed to be safe will it be put into storage. 12 combat teams, leave 2 teams to defend, 10 teams will attack. I want to hear the news that the entire Panshan tourist area is under control by tonight. Understood. The leaders of the 12 combat teams shouted loudly. But just as they took a few steps, several people who had eaten the smoked rat jerky suddenly fell down in agony. Ah! The jerky we ate is poisoned, help! Save me! Their lips turned black, faces turned green, and they writhed on the ground in pain. What's going on? The leader who had eaten the jerky showed a panicked expression. It had been so hard on the way here, and he had eaten a big handful of jerky just now, but after waiting for a while, he didn't have an attack, and neither did the others who had eaten. What kind of poison is this? Call the medical department. Connie Tark pushed her glasses up and said indifferently, "Those who are fine continue with the mission. As always, leave no waste." The leaders present trembled inwardly. The boss was too ruthless. A leader asked, "Boss, I heard there's a group of teachers and students here. Should we?" Connie Tark pushed her glasses up and said, "Teachers and students are high-quality resources. First, control them, then screen and deal with them afterward." Soon, gunshots rang out from time to time within the tourist area. Smart ones like Min took people and fled. Those who couldn't escape had to watch helplessly as the enemy advanced, waiting to be killed. Those who were unwilling to accept it would struggle and resist, but such struggle and resistance were rare, and soon they died in silence with the sound of gunfire and explosions. Others wanted to run away with more food, but before they could even step out the door, they were blocked by several submachine guns. "Don't shoot. We heard a big boss is here. We've specially prepared our food to hand over and hope to join us brothers." Henry knelt down and shouted to the arriving combat team, very sincere. Soon, the eastern region of the landslide area was completely controlled by the various combat teams. Corpses were carried out one by one and transported in one direction. It seemed they were preparing to dispose of them collectively. Now only the 8 villas left in the western region of the landslide area remained. A combat team crossed the rope bridge and began to clear the villas here. After the people in the villa closest to the rope bridge were killed, the remaining villas, when called upon, would generally obediently open the doors and voluntarily accept inspection. Until 2 minions came to Villa number 36. "Open the door. If you don't want to die, come out and accept the inspection." Chapter 42. This person is terrifying. Must be eliminated. The door opened. It was the left half of the door that swung open. Lily stood at the doorstep, wearing a loose, beautiful dress, looking frightened and pitiful. This sight caught the eyes of the 2 henchmen, nearly making them drool. Assissus. It was rare to see such a clean and pretty girl in the apocalyptic environment. The henchman in front extended his hand, ready to touch her, but before he could finish his sentence, an arrow from a crossbow appeared in his forehead. He fell straight down with a plop into the rainwater. The henchman next to him didn't even have time to call for help before another arrow pierced his throat. "Close the door, run," Maria said after killing 2 men. Lily immediately closed the door and ran towards the staircase. Maria, in a flash, pushed a large cabinet to block the door again. "Damn it! Dared to kill our men." In less than 15 seconds, the members of this combat team discovered the situation here. Some carried submachine guns, blowing whistles as they ran towards Villa 36. 2 minutes later, 14 people had gathered at the entrance of Villa 36. Their combat team was composed of groups of 20, with 6 in a squad and 1 leader and 1 deputy leader. The leader's name was Patrick, and the deputy leader's name was Yuk. The 2 were close comrades, having 6 years of foreign mercenary combat experience in their youth. "Blast!" Leader Patrick ordered. Immediately, a team member took out a homemade explosive from his waterproof backpack, attached it to the door, and lit the fuse. With a bang, the remaining half of the door and the cabinet blocking it were blown to pieces. "Go!" Leader Patrick signaled, letting the armed team members lead the way. At that moment, Maria and Lily crouched on the second floor, shivering, especially Maria, who was covering her ears, on the verge of tears. Facing ordinary intruders, Maria could still hold herself together, but the use of explosives and submachine guns was too terrifying. She only had a crossbow and a sword. This was bullying. "Maria, maintain your strong presence," Lily cried out. "They're coming up." Maria glanced at the frightened Lily beside her, understanding that now was not the time to be afraid, but she was genuinely terrified. "Forget it." As the sounds grew closer, Maria opened her right hand, a red fireball appearing in her palm, which quickly expanded to the size of a watermelon and was flung onto the stairs. Boom! An explosion. The 3 men rushing up were directly incinerated by the fireball, and the subsequent 2 were thrown back, with half of the staircase collapsing. Those standing outside could even feel the entire villa shaking. Damn! Leader Patrick was shocked. Such use of explosives. Wasn't she afraid of collapsing the villa? "There's a tough one." Deputy Leader Yuk rubbed his bald head, his face showing excitement. It had been a long time since he felt such danger and excitement. "Keep going. I'll lead the charge." Seeing the deputy leader go first, the other frightened team members immediately followed. Without revealing himself, Yuk had already begun firing at the staircase entrance to prevent any possible ambushes. But at this moment, Maria had already taken Lily to the 3rd floor, trembling as usual at the staircase landing. The gunshots were too terrifying. "Maria, hold on." Lily was on the verge of tears. "Maria, they're on the 2nd floor, about to reach the 3rd. Maria nodded. As if recalling something, she released a series of water balls towards the staircase entrance, and in an instant, the entire staircase was flooded with water. As the bald deputy leader Yuk prepared to charge up, he stopped upon seeing the water, chuckling. "Damn! I thought it was gasoline. Scared me to death." "Gasoline?" Maria's eyes lit up. She did indeed have a lot of gasoline in her magical space. However, if she were to pour gasoline down and light it, she might end up burning herself. "Follow me up." Yuk led the charge. He continued to fire to secure the angle and moved forward. But as he rounded the corner to continue his charge, he felt something was wrong. It was as if he had charged into a swimming pool, a water cube, struggling to escape, only to have a large amount of water rush into his body, unable to call for help. He felt completely unable to breathe. What was happening? He was charging upwards, not into water, so why was this happening? Everything in front of him was completely beyond Deputy Leader Yuk's understanding. Fear spread within him, yet as a former outstanding mercenary, he decided to hold his breath temporarily and look for any chance to escape. But at that moment, he saw an arrow flying towards him, accurately piercing his throat. Finally got rid of him. Maria breathed a sigh of relief. This man was too dangerous. He had to die. She had summoned water balls to make the stairs wet to slow them down, making them cautious, and then, at the critical moment, allowed them to charge into a large water ball and drown themselves. Because those who kept firing guns were really impossible to fight head-on. Too terrifying. The large water ball collapsed, crashing down and knocking the people who charged up backwards. "Ah!" A group of people screamed and rolled down the stairs, a few accidentally hitting their heads against the wall, losing their combat ability. Maria acted quickly, rushing out and firing arrows with precision, hitting each fallen person. On the way, she noticed 3 beautiful bombs on a bald corpse. Without hesitation, Maria pulled the rings off the bombs, threw them down the corridor, and ran to the 3rd floor. Explosion imminent. Explosion imminent. Explosion imminent. At this moment, Lily had no idea what was happening, only seeing Maria rush back, trembling against the wall. "My dear Maria, why are you like this again?" Just as she was about to encourage Maria, she heard 3 consecutive large explosions downstairs, deafening her, and she collapsed to the ground. "Maria, what did you just do?" Deputy Leader. Deputy Leader. Combat Leader Patrick, who had intended to sit downstairs to prevent anyone from escaping by jumping off the building, couldn't sit still anymore as Yuk ran into trouble. This turn of events made him unable to sit still. Because the previous battles had been too smooth, taking over the tourist area had encountered little resistance, they had underestimated the people in this villa, resulting in the loss of 5 or 6 men right at the start. Now even Deputy Leader Yuk was in trouble, He had no way to explain this back. Thinking of the boss Connie Tark's methods, he charged up directly. Today, he must eliminate the people in this villa. But as Patrick charged up a few steps, he heard several crisp and cheerful sounds. As a seasoned Special Forces soldier, he was very familiar with these sounds. It was bombs. And they were bombs from Yuk's possession. Worse, he was on the stairs now, unable to even lie down. Boom! Chapter 43. This thing works way better than a crossbow. After the terrifying explosion, Team Leader Patrick found himself still conscious and alive. However, he was in excruciating pain all over his body. He was merely surviving. As a seasoned mercenary, he knew he had to leave immediately. Unlike their previous adversaries, the inhabitants of this villa were not normal people. They were simply lunatics. He tried to call for help from his teammates but couldn't produce any sound. When he attempted to get up, he realized one of his feet was missing. Ah! Patrick let out a painful scream, discovering something even more terrifying. He couldn't hear anything. His mind was filled with chaotic roaring sounds. Even worse, he looked up and saw Maria standing on the stairs, holding a crossbow. An arrow struck him precisely between the eyes. As one of Connie Tark's elite lieutenants, a team leader of 12 combat groups, and a seasoned mercenary, Patrick was dead. Meanwhile, Lily, who had been startled by the explosion downstairs, noticed that Maria, who had been trembling beside her just moments ago, was gone again. Why say again? She didn't know. This person was too fierce, too terrifying. Maria trembled as she looked at Patrick's lifeless body, his eyes wide open in death. On the ground floor, there were 4 survivors armed not with guns but with swords. Swords like the Excalibur, the dragon-slaying saber, the Loyal Sun sword. Maria recognized them all. These were probably part of a cosplayer's collection, which they had sharpened. Without a word, she fired several crossbow bolts, and the men fell instantly, dying quickly. After dealing with them, Maria quickly retreated. She never intended to go down to the first floor. If there were any sneaky snipers outside, revealing herself would be suicidal. However, the guns and bullets in the hands of the corpses on the stairs were now hers. Unfortunately, only 2 guns remained intact. An M416 and an AK-47. Maria trembled. Too terrifying. If any of those bullets had hit her, she would have been dead for sure. At the same time, Maria felt a surge of excitement. This thing works way better than a crossbow. With guns, she didn't have to wait for them to attack anymore. She could go straight to the 3rd floor and snipe them. Sadly, the other guns were destroyed in the battle earlier, especially a modified SKS, which would have been great for sniping. It was one of her favorite precision rifles from shooting games. Realizing that some parts of the damaged guns could still be used, Maria collected them all. On the 2nd floor, she pushed a large wardrobe to block the staircase completely. Maria! Seeing Maria return, Lily snapped back to reality, her face drenched in tears. It was always her telling Maria to hold it together, but she was the one who couldn't. Want to try one? Maria showed off her newly acquired M416 and AK-47. Lily stared blankly at the guns in Maria's hands, then at her trembling body, completely at a loss for words. She shook her head vigorously. Fear. Stay here. Maria, with her guns, went to the window on the 3rd floor and peeked outside. She saw the situation downstairs. The failed assault on Villa 36 had left 4 members of Patrick's team maintaining order outside. Realizing the gravity of the situation, 2 of them were crossing a rope bridge to report back. Maria blinked, aimed her AK-47, and fired. Bang! A man about to reach the other side of the landslide area had his scorching, falling backward into the muddy water, disappearing without a splash. The other man, upon hearing the gunshot, rolled to the ground the moment he crossed the bridge, using roadside bushes for cover and hiding in the corner of a broken villa. Ah! On this side of the landslide area, 2 members of Patrick's team stood in the heavy rain. They stared in bewilderment as a teammate was shot dead, uncertain of what was transpiring. They knew their team leader Patrick was facing resistance at Villa 36 and had received a message asking for updates. But how could the people inside have time to kill them under their leader's fierce attack? Before they could think more, 2 more gunshots rang out. The 2 men standing in the rain fell to the ground. Refugees who had been driven out of the villa earlier scattered in fear at the sight. So terrifying! After sniping 3 men, Maria crouched down, trembling, holding her AK-47. All the intruders had been eliminated. She couldn't hold it together anymore. Lily watched the trembling Maria, her face covered in tears, completely stunned. At the car park, Connie Tark sat in the security office, listening to her subordinates' reports. Group 2 seized 200 pounds of rice, 10 pounds of flour, 170 pounds of smoked meat, and 60 pounds of other dry rations. Group 3 seized 600 pounds of rice, 800 pounds of corn, 300 pounds of salted meat, 300 pounds of smoked meat, and 350 pounds of other dry rations. Group 5 seized 300 pounds of rice, 1,200 pounds of soybeans, 250 pounds of salted fish, 520 pounds of smoked meat, and 2,100 pounds of other dry rations. According to the informants sent in advance, the refugees sheltering in the tourist area were mostly emaciated from hunger, willing to engage in large-scale conflicts for a bite to eat, only slightly improving their situation after organizing hunting parties for mutant giant rats. After all, although there were many giant rats in the mountains, they were insignificant compared to the daily food needs of thousands of people. Earlier, she had arranged for people to gather so many corpses to chop them up, primarily for making bait for rat traps. To her surprise, they had managed to collect so much food. These people were quite something. But thanks to them, all this food was now hers. With so much food, she would be able to fully occupy this tourist area, turning it into a base, a kingdom. She would be the queen who ruled over everyone's life and death in this kingdom. Connie Tark was fantasizing about her bright future when a disheveled team member rushed in, breaking the idyllic atmosphere. The new defectors from the tourist area stood timidly to the side, not daring to utter a word. "Report! Captain Patrick needs backup." The panicked team member gasped for breath, hurriedly announcing. Connie Tark remained silent, closing the criminal law book in her hands, calmly looking at the team member. "Speak slowly," the disheveled team member said. "We're attacking Villa 36 across the landslide area, but we lost several brothers shortly after the battle began. Team leader Patrick ordered me to come for support." He didn't dare mention the incident of their comrade being shot while crossing the bridge by someone from Villa 36. After all, team leader Patrick was still attacking Villa 36. How could they have time to attack them? Unless team leader Patrick was already dead. But to say such a thing would mean his certain death. Connie Tark's fingertips lightly touched the criminal law book in her hand, saying, "The 11th Combat Group, launch a probing attack. The 10th Combat Group, provide flanking support. Chapter 44. Start with a bang. How do you fight this?" In the area affected by the sinkhole and mudslides, some refugees who had broken free of control returned to their original villas, while others hastily gathered some belongings and headed into the wooded mountains, fleeing first and figuring things out later. The battle at Villa 36 was terrifying. By habit, they calculated that the witch in Villa 36 had killed at least 18 people in this round of combat. That's ruthless. It's worth noting that the attackers at Villa 36 were armed with guns and bombs, a far cry from those with machetes and steel pipes in the past. At the moment, Maria inside the villa had temporarily calmed down, because she felt a bit hungry. Maria took out 2 bottles of water and 2 egg cakes, sharing them with Lily, one for each. Halfway through eating, Lily suddenly shuddered and quietly peeked out of the window. "Maria, there's a sniper on that building. They're coming over." At the left window of the 3rd floor of Villa 17. "What?" Maria put the unfinished water and egg cake back into her magical space. She stealthily looked and quickly locked onto the position Lily mentioned. Sure enough, a sniper appeared there, and for some reason, the person was casually assembling a sniper rifle and adjusting the equipment right in front of the window. The distance was about 800 meters. Maria immediately switched to her AK-47, aimed, and fired. With a gunshot, the bullet traced a beautiful arc through the air and accurately hit the sniper's head, causing him to fall. After killing the sniper, Maria immediately crouched down, trembling, and holding her AK-47. She moved to another window. That sniper's rifle must have been very powerful. Too terrifying. If only she could have that sniper rifle. Why do these people have so many firearms and ammunition, including such a beautiful sniper rifle? Where did they come from? Did they steal from a military base in the disaster area? If that's the case, hopefully they don't have mortars or RPGs. Be careful. Over here, the 11th Combat Team, preparing for a probing attack, immediately sought cover upon hearing the gunshot. They were all at the rope bridge and hadn't crossed yet. After hearing the gunshot and seeing no further response from Villa 36, the leader of the 11th Combat Team ordered his men to start crossing the bridge, while others provided fire support. However, the rope bridge was over 500 meters away from Villa 36, and they couldn't even see Maria, let alone accurately shoot at her. After a blind volley, they only shattered a few windows on the second floor, while the windows on the third floor remained intact. The tourist area claimed that the villa glass was bulletproof, but now it seemed like a lie. Whether it's a lie or not doesn't matter, but they can't break the glass. There are only a few days left before the severe cold. If the glass breaks, she won't find anyone to fix it. Maria was furious, yet she was extremely scared and didn't dare to peek out again. Maria, there are people coming around from the back mountain. Lily, trembling with fear, suddenly said, "They also have guns. This is too terrifying." In a rush, Maria deployed a magical spatial array in front of her, and soon bullets seemed to disappear into a flowing stream. Defensive measure effective. Maria immediately peeked out, set up her AK-47, and aimed at a man who had just crossed the rope bridge, pulling the trigger. Bang! The target was shot in the head and fell to the ground. Maria's eyes lit up. This meant that her magical spatial array could absorb attacks from the front without affecting her attacks from the back. Having spatial magic is truly great. However, the excitement lasted no more than 3 seconds as the enemy's gunfire became even more intense and brutal. Maria was terrified. She felt she was about to lose control of her trembling body. For this, Maria immediately aimed at the men crossing the rope bridge, rapidly firing her AK-47, shooting one by one, all hitting their heads and causing them to fall into the muddy rainwater below, quickly swallowed up. Seeing no more heads peeking out, Maria immediately crouched down, trembling with her gun. The magical spatial array was temporarily lifted, because maintaining the magical spatial array continuously consumes magical power. On the other side of the rope bridge, the leader of the 11th Combat Team, Vincent, had a grim expression. Was the person in Villa 36 a sharpshooter? Even if they were, it was too absurd. It's pouring with heavy rain. There's no good shooting visibility. Before officially starting, his sniper was killed, and his men crossing the bridge under fire support were all shot in the head, which shocked him, the combat leader. Peeking out gets you shot in the head. How do you fight this? According to intelligence, no one in this tourist area had guns. Now, there are guns in Villa 36, and the 12th Combat Team's Patrick has no response. What does this mean? The 12th Combat Team might be wiped out, and Patrick, that idiot, became a delivery man for their ammunition. Report this situation immediately to the boss. Vincent took out his binoculars to look at Villa 36, no longer having any thoughts of stepping out. Notify the 10th Combat Team as well. Tell them the situation, so they don't die in ignorance. Considering there was a 10th Combat Team moving in a roundabout way through the heavy rain on the mountain path, Vincent decided to warn them, so if anything went wrong later, the responsibility wouldn't be on him. The 10th Combat Team, upon learning of the situation faced by the 11th Combat Team through their walkie-talkie, immediately halted their advance, waiting for further orders from boss Connie Tark. Connie Tark received the battle report, tapping her fingers on a copy of the penal code, pondering her next move. Notify the 10th Combat Team's Jamie to halt actions and wait in place for further orders. Tell the 11th Combat Team's Vincent to try negotiating with the people in Villa 36. Ask if they're willing to join us, and if they are, all previous incidents will be overlooked. If they refuse, it's a battle to the death. A sharpshooter in a heavy rainstorm is a rare talent. Connie Tark weighed the pros and cons and decided to prioritize recruitment. If they joined, just the people in Villa 36 could be worth 5 of her combat teams. Despite this action potentially causing discontent among others, these were minor concerns. She would provide satisfactory appeasement conditions. The 4th and 5th combat teams, go capture 300 people and arrange them at the edge of the sinkhole and mudslide area as a contingency measure. Connie Tark said indifferently, "Yes." The leaders of the 4th and 5th combat teams immediately led their men away. Hearing the previous orders, both men were shocked. Their boss was about to employ that terrifying bloody method again. In the sinkhole and mudslide area, upon receiving the order, the leader of the 11th combat team, Vincent, immediately selected a team member to raise a white flag and prepare to cross the rope bridge to negotiate with Maria. As long as it wasn't him peeking out, there were no issues. However, as soon as the person with the white flag reached the rope bridge, there was a loud bang. The person was shot in the head, stumbled, and fell into the rushing rainwater below. Maria, the person you just killed, seemed to be holding a white flag, trying to come over for talks. Lily crouched beside Maria, trembling, and said, "Was that so? I've already killed him." Maria, trembling, replied while holding her AK-47. She really didn't see the white flag. Chapter 45. Who is threatening whom? Shivering for a while, crouching against the wall, Maria regained her composure and asked, "Lily, you can sense their positions. Have you awakened a skill like magical perception?" Lily was momentarily stunned, exposed. She looked at Maria and shook her head. "Maria, I'm not." Facing Maria's gaze, Lily wanted to confess but dared not, fearing that Maria would make her leave if she did. I. You don't have to say if you don't want to." Maria hugged the AK-47, comforting her. She was just curious and didn't necessarily want to know. Because Lily had been trembling under the window the whole time, without even looking, she knew the situation outside. Even if she did look, with such heavy rain blocking the view, no normal person could see clearly. Besides, Lily would occasionally show this ability in normal times, but Maria never asked. In the apocalypse prophecy she received, it mentioned that animals and humans on Earth would undergo certain mutations. It would not surprise Maria if this happened to Lily. After all, the apocalypse had arrived. As for why she asked now, apart from curiosity, it was because they were facing a crisis. If possible, Maria hoped to better determine the positions of these dangerous individuals outside, making it easier for her to find targets. If there was any danger, it would be more convenient to defend. Lily looked pitiful. "Maria, this is how it is. I can roughly know their positions, but it's not a magical perception-like ability." Maria looked at Lily for a while. "Lily, there's no need to hide next time. If you know bad guys are coming, just say it. I won't treat you like a monster." "Won't be treated like a monster?" Lily blinked a few times, hearing Maria's subsequent comfort. She didn't know whether to be happy or not. "Okay." Lily nodded. In less than 3 seconds, her body trembled violently. "Maria, they've brought many disaster victims from the tourist area, and it seems they're going to do something terrible." Maria checked her angle and peeked out of the window. She saw near the rope bridge, 10 ragged disaster victims stepped forward and lined up neatly. What were they going to do? Were they planning to use these victims as shields to cross the rope bridge and launch an attack? If so many people attacked, it would be terrifying. Maria quickly crouched down, hugging the AK-47 and trembling. The fighting today had been too long. At that moment, a loudspeaker voice came through the storm. "Residents of Villa 36, you are surrounded. Please cherish your lives and do not resist. Our boss values talents. If you lay down your weapons and surrender, the boss promises you a high salary and position in the company. Endless food, endless women. If you insist on resisting, we will use bombs to completely annihilate you. You have 3 minutes to consider. Every 3 minutes, if you don't agree to surrender, we will execute 10 people until you come out. Those who are killed, don't blame us. Blame the residents of Villa 36 for not surrendering, for not wanting you to live. It's the residents of Villa 36 who really kill you. Group leader Vincent of the 11th Tactical Team stood not far away, looking at the group leaders of the 4th and 5th Tactical Teams. Then, at the dense crowd in the storm, his heart trembled. The boss was using this method again. Where was the last time and the time before that? Vincent had forgotten. The only thing he remembered was that the brothers had turned the rain into blood, and even the continuous downpour could not dilute the blood on the ground. He was certain that anyone with a shred of conscience could not bear such bloody pressure. Maria made no response. She didn't even continue to look up, just trembling under the window. Maria, the 1st and 4th people near the rope bridge, are those who attacked our villa before. Lily hugged her knees, her voice trembling. She was terrified, more than ever before. Outside, the hidden negotiator continued to persuade and count down, like a death knell. Those who were pushed out to face death. Some had a moment of awakening. Some pleaded, some cursed, and some still showed no reaction. Maria reached out to touch Lily's head. "Lily, don't be afraid." Her hand, which was soothing Lily, trembled slightly, making the reassurance questionable. Lily was numb. The next second, Maria let go, stood up, aimed, and fired. The two who had been used as a threat and had attacked Villa 36 before were shot in the head and fell to the ground. They died quickly, probably without much pain. Having done this, Maria crouched down again, trembling. 2 gunshots and the loudspeaker at the landslide area stalled. Who the hell fired? Group leader Bodhi of the 4th Tactical Team cursed. The members of the 4th and 5th Tactical Teams behind, ready to fire, looked at each other. No one had fired. Group leader Sung of the 5th Tactical Team said, "It wasn't our people who fired." Group leader Vincent of the 11th Tactical Team said, "The gunshots came from Villa 36. Confirming the source of the gunfire, everyone felt something was wrong. They hadn't even started killing the hostages used for threats, and the other side had already killed 2. What was this about? How monstrous were the people living in Villa 36? As they were stunned, the gunfire sounded again. This time, the remaining 8 near the rope bridge were shot dead, also with 1 shot to the head. These few had been cursing Maria. The remaining 5 dared not stand still and ran back. No matter how loudly the tactical team members behind yelled, they refused to stop. Just then, the 3 minutes were up. The tactical team members fired, killing all 5. The faces of group leaders Bodhi, Sung, and Vincent were very grim. Continuing to execute the boss's plan was a waste of ammunition and meaningless. Their threat had failed. The residents of Villa 36 were more monstrous than they were. In a sense, it could even be seen as a threat to them. With the heavy rain blocking their view, every shot was a headshot. Was this human? Report the situation here to the boss and let the boss decide. Vincent said. Group leaders Bodhi and Sung had no objections. Receiving the battle report, Connie Tark was silent for a few seconds. She looked at the big and small leaders in the tourist area standing in the house and asked calmly, "Who knows who lives in Villa 36? Chapter 46. She has no humanity." "I know." Strong stepped forward. Connie Tark glanced at him, waiting for him to continue. Strong said, "The resident in Villa 36 is named Maria, in her 20s, seems to be quite wealthy, and moved in before the rain, renting for over 2 months straight. Oh, and she used to live in Villa 32. Maria has a crossbow and never misses. After the rain, there were landslides near her villa, and she was attacked, so she killed many people and moved to Villa 36, where she's been ever since. Since moving into Villa 36, few people have seen Maria leave, but there's always a smell of meat. Back then, when everyone was starving for real meat, many tried to break into Villa 36 to steal it." Strong observed Connie Tark for a moment and continued. "According to the information I've gathered, anyone who attacked Villa 36 failed, most ending up as corpses in the rainwater. This happens every few days. Several times. There were so many corpses in front of Villa 36 that they couldn't be washed away, just floating there, very eerie. Because of this, we call Maria the witch or the killer witch. That's all I know." Henry raised his hand. "Boss, I know some too. Connie Tark glanced at him. "Speak," Henry quickly said. "Boss, I almost died at Maria's hands before." He briefly described how he and his brothers tried to attack Villa 36 and how he begged for mercy to escape with his life. Maria seems to be extremely socially anxious. Many have seen her hands shaking violently while using the crossbow to kill. Connie Tark said, "Socially anxious? Interesting. Yet she still manages to hit her mark every time with trembling hands. Are you sure she's just socially anxious? Not a social terrorist?" Henry remained silent. Since coming here, he noticed that even the ruthless combat leaders feared this boss named Connie Tark, and there must be a reason for it. His life was barely saved by his brothers, and he wanted to live on for them, not die without understanding why. Henry quickly changed his tune. Yes, Maria is a social terrorist. Someone counted, saying she's killed about 500 or 600 people. Some also say that before we arrived, the residents in the villa area were cleared out by Maria. She has no humanity. Connie Tark indifferently looked at Henry. She couldn't determine if this was a lie, but the situation was probably close to this. In this case, even if they captured 300 people to kill in front of Maria, or even several thousand, Maria wouldn't surrender. She might even take the initiative to kill. It's been a long time since I faced such a challenge. Since she refuses to surrender, I'll end this killer witch and rid the people of her harm. Killing Maria will surely earn me more prestige in this tourist area. Most importantly, such a dangerous person can't be of use to me. She must be eliminated. Except for combat teams 1 and 2, all other teams will join the fight, leveling Villa 36 to the ground. Inform the team leaders that they can use any means necessary. Connie Tark calmly said, "You're Henry, right? I'll avenge your brothers killed by Maria. Shouldn't you show some gratitude?" Henry immediately knelt. "Boss, I pledge my life in loyalty to you." Connie Tark said, "Good. I don't need your life. I'll give you some guns, and you'll lead your brothers in the front line. I'm very experienced in avenging, and only by doing it yourself can you clear your mind. I look forward to your performance." Leading the charge with guns? Henry felt his scalp tingle. Didn't he just hear the report? The killer which used to hit every shot with a crossbow. Now with a gun she'd be even more lethal. He'd be leading the charge to his own headshot. But he didn't dare refuse. She didn't give him any chance to refuse. He regretted it. He shouldn't have talked back. Connie Tark said, "Take him to report to Combat Team 11. In Villa 36, Maria listened to the sound of the heavy rain outside and calmed down. She glanced outside every so often. So far, no one had shown themselves. Lily was crouched beside her, hugging her knees, occasionally trembling, which was a bit worrying. Lily was likely using her ability to see the enemy's movements and provide timely updates. Using magic consumes magical power. Maria didn't know what Lily was consuming, but seeing her eat bread quickly earlier, she guessed prolonged use of this ability might make her hungry. So, Maria took out more bread from her magical space for Lily. This way, she could replenish quickly. After all, she had accidentally killed the specially arranged negotiators earlier. Given the enemy's method of capturing innocent disaster victims as threats, the outcome was bound to be unending. As for the subsequent propaganda through a loudspeaker, Maria didn't believe it. Tricking people to their death with such a crude method, she had seen too much of it in history books and anime novels. She just wanted to quietly survive the subsequent apocalyptic disaster in this villa, not engaging with too many people. Why did they have to target her? So infuriating. Thinking about it, Maria got angry. Further thinking, it's the apocalypse, anything can happen, and it's no surprise they're doing this. Maria's expression grew firm. The only thing she could do was to kill all of them. That way, there would be no more trouble. "Maria, they're here more than before. Some are coming over the rope bridge. Some are circling from behind the mountain." Lily's face showed fear. "They brought a lot of explosives. They want to blow up the whole villa. They're also using those people as cannon fodder, making them walk in front as human shields." Maria glanced outside. Across the landslide area, people were beginning to emerge and head towards the rope bridge. Due to the heavy rain, and without Lily's ability, it was hard for her to distinguish who was dangerous. Unless these people came closer so Maria could identify them by their malice. Additionally, these people were coerced, and they all looked malicious towards Maria. Fuzzily observing, everyone was cursing her, wishing for her death, as if her death would save them. What should I do? Maria wasn't one to indiscriminately kill, but she certainly didn't want these people to get any closer. It was too dangerous. There it is. Maria thought of a plan, stood at the window and fired several shots. The gunshots rang out again, scaring the combat team members hiding in the crowd to crouch down.